Like to this day, I still think about that.
Really?
Yeah, hell yeah. Cause I'm like, they promised me. You know what I'm saying? Yo, we taking you. We taking you.
Did they?
I'm talking all the way up to draft day. And then they won it. And I'm like, oh, my luck. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm there, I think they win another one.
I think so too.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I wouldn't jump out there and say we 3 people, but I think we go back to back.
Carmelo Anthony was one of the most prolific scorers in the history of the NBA, and after 19 seasons in the league, he finally chose to call time on his decorated career.
It's bittersweet goodbye to the NBA. I'm excited about what the future holds for me. Peace.
We got to keep it real.
Known for his dazzling offensive moves and silky jump shot, Anthony was one of the hardest players to guard on the hardwood and was destined for stardom from the jump. This was first demonstrated in high school during his senior year at Oak Hill Academy, where he was named a McDonald's All-American and led Oak Hill to a 32-1 record. His lone season in college was no different. During his freshman campaign at Syracuse, he was named the National Freshman of the Year and a consensus second-team All-American. In the process, he authored one of the quintessential one-and-done seasons in college hoops history, as Syracuse went on to upset the heavily favored University of Kansas team 81-78, which saw Anthony named as the tournament's most outstanding player. The NBA now awaited him that June, as he would go on to declare for the 2003 NBA draft. Entering a draft class that many consider to be one of the best in NBA history, alongside 2 of his longtime friends in LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, Anthony was selected with the 3rd pick by the Denver Nuggets and would ultimately become an integral piece of franchise history from the very start. In that draft, LeBron James went 1st overall to the Cleveland Cavaliers, Chris Bosh went 4th to the Toronto Raptors, and Dwayne Wade went 5th to the Miami Heat. Wade and Bosh were named Hall of Famers in 2021 and 2023 respectively, while LeBron and Melo are set to join them in the near future. LeBron, Wade and Bosh played together for 4 years on the Miami Heat, winning 2 championships together. Anthony, on the other hand, was in Denver, winning games but struggling to get out of the first round in a far superior Western Conference. Ultimately, Melo decided to leave for what he believed to be greener pastures with the New York Knicks, and the Melo era was done in Denver after 8 years. Still, Anthony did a lot for the Nuggets in helping them get back on the map. The Nuggets were a lost franchise until they picked Melo 3rd overall in the 2003 NBA draft, and it's difficult to say what the Nuggets would have done if Melo had never come to Denver. But what if Melo was never available for the Nuggets to draft? There's one player selected in the top 5 of the 2003 NBA draft I've neglected to mention thus far. Darko Milicic of the Detroit Pistons, drafted 2nd overall ahead of Anthony, Bosh and Wade. Darko spent 10 seasons in the NBA, but he averaged starter minutes just once during his career. With career averages of 6 points and 4.2 rebounds, it's safe to say that Milicic was one of the biggest busts in NBA history, especially considering the Hall of Fame talent drafted around him. That brings us to the ultimate question. What if Carmelo Anthony was drafted 2nd overall in 2003 over Darko Milicic? The 2002-2003 Detroit Pistons were already an elite team. They won 50 games the year prior and made the Eastern Conference Finals behind Chauncey Billups, Richard Hamilton, and Defensive Player of the Year Ben Wallace. There were other pieces on that roster, including a 36-year-old Cliff Robinson, but the most important pieces of Billups, Hamilton, and Wallace were locked in. Despite having the Defensive Player of the Year as their starting center, the Pistons grew infatuated with Milicic during the draft process. The 7-footer from Serbia was entering his 18-year-old season, and he looked to have the possible skill set that teams craved in their big men during the 1990s and 2000s. Post offense still ruled the day, with Shaquille O'Neal and Tim Duncan dominating during the post-Michael Jordan era. Carmelo Anthony was the much safer, realistic pick for the Pistons at the time, fresh off of a national championship with the Syracuse Orange as a freshman, and was considered the college prodigy, while LeBron James emerged as a generational talent straight out of high school. Both players were considered elite, franchise-changing small forward prospects, and with the Pistons securing the 2nd overall pick, they were guaranteed at least one of them. In hindsight, the Pistons drafting Darko over Melo appears to be an even more egregious mistake. The Pistons had their backcourt of Billups and Rip Hamilton locked in. Ben Wallace already had 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards to his name. The positions Detroit should have been trying to fill were small forward and power forward. They ultimately settled on Tayshaun Prince at small forward, but during the 2002-2003 season, he had averaged 10 minutes per game as a rookie. Anthony or even Chris Bosh made infinitely more sense as pieces to complement Detroit's current roster. The lineup possibilities in Detroit would have been ridiculous, with Billups, Hamilton and Melo ultimately carrying the scoring and Wallace locking down the paint. The Pistons could have thrown Rasheed Wallace out there with the starters for additional size and shooting. They could also use Tayshaun Prince as even more of a Swiss Army knife than he was for the roster, coming off the bench and replacing either Hamilton to offer more size or Anthony to offer more wing defense. Backups Mehmet Okur and Lindsey Hunter were the only other Pistons to average over 20 minutes per game, but the above 8 would have made for a lethal playoff rotation. The Pistons ultimately won a ring during Melo's rookie season in 2003-2004, so it's clear they didn't need him to get over the hump. However, could Melo have kept their championship window open for longer? Of course. The year after Detroit's championship run, they made it back to the finals in the 2004-2005 season and lost to Tim Duncan and the San Antonio Spurs in 7 games. The final score of Game 7 was 81-74. Melo certainly could have offered some scoring punch during that series to give the Pistons a boost. It was more of the same for the Pistons for the rest of the joint tenure of Billups, Hamilton, Prince, Sheed and Ben Wallace. They consistently played elite defense, but could never find that extra gear offensively. For all of his weaknesses that fans have lamented about before, Carmelo Anthony never lacked for scoring. He was productive, efficient for his time, and added the one-on-one element those Pistons teams generally missed. Billups and Hamilton were great players to be clear, but they weren't as talented scoring the basketball as Melo was. How many more championships would the Pistons have won with Melo in the fold? It's hard to say, but there's no reason they couldn't have added at least another to their collection while their core was intact. The one thing Melo never did in his prime was get a ring, but with this Pistons group, I think he may have accumulated at least 2, maybe 3. So where does that leave Denver? Just 1 year prior, the Nuggets drafted Nikolos Skitishvili 5th overall in the 2002 NBA draft, and it didn't work out very well. Skitishvili played in 81 games during Denver's 17-win season in 2002-2003, but after Denver selected Anthony in 2003, he barely played again and was out of the league after 2006. It was safe to say the Nuggets were clearly in a bad place before getting Melo. But what if Melo was taken with the 2nd overall pick? How would Denver have handled that? The biggest question is whether Denver would have selected Milicic 3rd overall in 2003 had the Pistons not selected him. After it was looking pretty bad with Skitishvili, I would have been surprised had the Nuggets taken another foreign prospect, especially one that played a position at which Denver was relatively strong. Denver had centers, or at least several bigs, with Juwan Howard, Marcus Camby and Nene on the roster. What they needed was a playmaker, a scorer to get the offense rolling. That wasn't Darko, and it probably wasn't going to be power forward Chris Bosh either. The player most affected by Detroit drafting Melo instead of Darko was probably Dwayne Wade, a dynamic guard that played 2 years of college at Marquette. He was an elite athlete, strong with the ball in his hands, and lightning fast on the court. In reality, he was selected 5th overall by the Miami Heat, but in this scenario the Nuggets take him 3rd and center their entire organization around the young guard. Could he have led the Nuggets to an immediate playoff appearance like Melo did during his rookie season? It's possible. The supporting cast of Nene, Camby and Andre Miller during that season was underrated, and Wade would have added an immediate scoring and playmaking element in much the same way Melo did. Wade won several championships in Miami, primarily because he had assistance in the form of several other All-Stars at various times. In 2006, he and Shaq united to take down Dirk Nowitzki and the Dallas Mavericks for his first ring. In 2010, he recruited James and Bosh to South Beach, in which the Heatles won 2 rings and appeared in all 4 finals while LeBron called Miami home. Could Wade have had a similarly magnetic pull while in Denver? It seems unlikely but not impossible. If anything, Wade probably would have departed Denver during the 2010 offseason, much in the same way James and Bosh left their respective cities. In all likelihood, those three, or at least Wade and James, go to the Chicago Bulls to join a young Derrick Rose and company, leaving Denver in a very vulnerable position. Whether it was Melo, Wade, Bosh, or even Darko, the scenarios are endless. Melo being drafted by the Pistons is certainly the most fun to think about for Pistons fans than any other fan base.
If we do get Melo, when was Bron gonna ever take over? I guess it's an interesting question.
Yeah,
you know?
very.
But yeah, we all thought it was Melo. We was taking Melo.
They were the franchise that botched the 2003 NBA draft most egregiously, and while they won a championship, they had the opportunity to win several and missed.
If Carmelo comes to us, me and Chauncey talk about it. Would the narrative been different with LeBron James? The thing we'll be talking about is, okay, all right, Carmelo Anthony now has 3 championships already, right? Now Melo's thinking about, you know what, can he do this by himself?
The Nuggets probably don't win a championship in any scenario, but that's more a product of Denver not being able to have nice things. Even as close as Denver got in 2009, would Wade replacing Melo on the Nuggets have ultimately made the difference in a series like that? It's possible, but certainly up for debate. Either way, the ramifications of Detroit selecting Darko are vast, and they are certainly fun to think about. So what do you guys think of this situation? Would the Pistons have become a potential dynasty with Melo on their roster? And would his career be on par with the greats of the game who managed to secure a ring had he been a Detroit Piston? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and if you have any suggestions for any other what ifs for us to do, we'd love to hear them. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like, and if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Bench Mob and join our community, and by doing so you'll be in the running for the 1,000 subscriber giveaway. For now, that's all we have time for. From your boy Danko, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'll see you in the next video.